Welcome to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. If you would like to stay in the loop of our next opportunity or looking for capital to fund your deal, please email ppverikov@hotmail.com. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now to welcome your host, Peter Verikov.
Welcome to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast, from blueprints to skylines, where we interview the go-getters in the industry. I am your host, Peter Verikov. Today's guest is Connie Lee, co-founder CEO at Reffie. Thanks for coming on, Connie. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. Still got a lot of things to catch up on, but I get to end it with a nice conversation with you.
Thank you. Tell us everybody about yourself, your background, and what
Yeah,
you do.
I'm one of the co-founders of Reffie. Before I started the company, I actually used to run a number of different sales teams at different tech companies like ZipRecruiter, Boulevard, and whatnot. And Reffie's kind of an accidental company. I have immigrant parents, and all of them were convinced me to become a landlord at some point. And what happened was I had to manage my own units. I'd go to work and manage sales teams, and then I kind of like married into, and that's sort of how I came about at Reffie.
All right. What was the aha moment that realized that leasing process needed a tech-driven solution?
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely not the first to do it. What clicked for me personally was, so my job at the tech company was I would go to work and I would try to figure out why sales teams wouldn't close as many deals as they should, sort of what's going on with the workflows. Then I would go home and run leasing, which is essentially just inbound sales, right? You'd post what you're trying to sell, your apartment for rent, and wait for leads to come in, and you'd work the leads. So I realized that I didn't have even 1/10 of the tools that I would hammer my employees to use at work. And that's sort of what clicked. It wasn't really to start a company, it was more like, oh my God, I could actually just lease my units faster if I just used some of the things that I would harp on my employees about. I'm just gonna go and use them. And then I couldn't find something, so I had to jerry-rig the first version of Reffie to even do it.
Sure. Yeah, great. What shaped your entrepreneurial mindset? What started? I know you said your parents kind of pushed you a little, but what else? What were the?
I think I come from sort of like a maybe luckier background in that my parents owned restaurants growing up. So for me, knowing that they're immigrants and they opened a restaurant, starting a business never seemed like this crazy pie in the sky thing for me. Or like my parents who need me to help them read mail could start a restaurant, could start their own business. So like growing up, it was not this forbidden career path. So for me, like when I wanted to do it, it just felt natural.
Okay, well, great answer there. Talked about you started Reffy, launched in 2023. Am I correct?
Yeah, roughly around there. There was like some time around there where it was more stealthy and we're sort of like playing around with different ideas of how to solve the leasing problem. But I would say, yeah, roughly probably like 6 months after we really started, we raised our pre-seed round, and then we just most recently raised our seed round.
What was the biggest challenge in the investor side?
Sometimes. So there's like a couple of things with our company that will present challenges. One, we are in the real estate space, so prop tech is one of the older industries, and most people have either made a investment or they know someone who's made an investment in it and it hasn't gone well. So there's a lot of sort of like PTSD around there. Whereas, like for example, AI gets a lot of visibility now, but nobody has, like trauma from a bad AI investment yet. Whereas almost everyone has it from real estate. So it's a harder
Sure.
vertical to raise in. I would say that our solution falls into what people would famously call almost like a tar pit idea, where everyone's like, this is a no-brainer. Obviously, you should do it this way. How come it hasn't worked yet? So it's very difficult for us to raise that way as well.
All right. You got what differentiates yourselves from your competitors? What do you got better than them?
I would say we're lucky in that we are younger. A lot of folks, so like we have two main competitors, they're incumbents, they've roughly been around for 10 years, and they had to build software actually very similarly to each other, which comes with its own problems. So we're lucky to learn from their mistakes and sort of don't build that way from the get-go. So we have some advantages there. Honestly, it's an accidental company, so I think one of the luckiest things we do is that we build for our users to really adopt our product. And we don't have a lot of the color from being in the industry like that to make the product weird. So our claim to fame is that our users log on multiple times a day, 25 minutes a session. And shockingly, if you get your employees to work more productivity will happen.
Okay. So what about, I say, you got the landlord side and the renter side. Talk about those two. How's the landlord gonna get see better, better experience with this, and how's the renter also gonna see better experience with this? Can you look at the both?
Yeah. The high level way to sort of drill down like sort of what Reffie really is that we are a MarTech tool specifically for residential rentals. And we're here to help you push all the leads you get inbound as fast as possible through the sales cycle of leasing. So for the landlords, there's like a handful of problems that they still have to deal with. Like one of them is when you have a rental, you're gonna post it everywhere because you want as many leads as possible. You'll post on Zillow, apartments.com, rent.com,
Sure.
truly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the other side of that coin is that your leads are now kind of everywhere. And you have to kind of go to every website to go find them. You have to juggle them across websites. We will do one of the first solutions, which is I will plug in everything, your phone, your email, your site, Trulia, Zillow, and gather everything. And then once everything's in one spot, we can start doing things like automating messages, ranking the leads, not necessarily by how much they make, but more so by how engaged they are. I like to liken the leasing process roughly to how dating usually works, which is there's a lot of signals being read on each side, and you can typically tell sort of which lead is interested in your apartment or you. And that's sort of what our CRM does for the landlord side, where you're able to filter through all your leads, find the hottest ones, and actually just close them. On the renter side, they actually get a much more nice experience because typically you don't meet the renter where they want to communicate. So most folks will email the renters, call the renters, talk to them on Zillow, but obviously the renter would much prefer texting or whatever communication they choose. Almost always the leasing agent will swap the methodology and be like, okay, I know you texted me, but let's email instead. Reffie's built to adopt whichever one the renter chooses first.
Okay, the issues sounds good. But what about like okay, does Refi play any role in like the housing affordability and like or accessibility we have now? Does it help with any of that? You guys pushing that way, or you got any insight on that?
We do some more by servicing both naturally occurring affordable
Mhm.
portfolios, and then also just straight up affordable housing portfolios. A lot of those portfolios need extra help in terms of cross-selling inside the portfolio, right? Like if you have a voucher in LA County, you can only really qualify for LA County approved housing. And if you're a landlord with one LA County one, you usually have multitudes. So we actually help you kind of cross portfolio match and get that voucher used somewhere in your portfolio. So it does help in that way. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Can you talk about as we just being an entrepreneur, a founder, can you talk about a failure that kind of helped you grow? Any kind of mindset question like that?
Yeah, actually, raising is very hard in this market, especially if you're not just a full-on like sort of AI only solution.
Mhm.
And the first time we ever went out to raise our pre-seed round, we hadn't actually had a product yet. It was just a team, a dream, and like a slide deck, right? Uh,
Sure.
and it was honestly like a massive failure. We like went for a month and a half of like tons of meetings over and over again,
Yeah.
and nobody would bite on the idea. And eventually my co-founder and I are like, okay, maybe we're wrong. Maybe nobody wants this. And we didn't know what we wanted to do. And we really had no choice. And we were like questioning ourselves. So we just said, okay, before we give up on it, let's at least try to sell it and answer it for ourselves. Maybe the VCs are right. Nobody wants this. Um, And I guess we lucked out, or maybe they were wrong, but we did end up cold calling and cold emailing a bunch of people and then getting like our first 5-figure contract from that. And then next thing you know, that snowballed back into VC raising 6 months later. And then that's how we got our pre-seed round done. So we did not raise with nothing. We did go bad month and a half traction and then raised a very small amount of ACV. But yeah.
Yeah, great job. Where do you see Reffie in 5 years? What's your goal? What is your vision?
The very lofty vision is that I hope in 5 years, the power users of Reffie are able to fully pre-lease their portfolio, which is crazy. I know, crazy to say in our vertical, to say that you could pre-lease a portfolio.
Very ambitious. Favorite book, favorite podcast? What do you listen to? What do you read? How do you get information?
Music wise, I'm a weird listener. I typically repeat one song for like 8 hours a day, until I get sick of it and then find another song. So that one probably most people do not want my recommendation. But one of my favorite books is actually Flowers of Algernon, if you've ever read it. It is about this person who like goes through an experimentation process and they go from extremely smart to extremely dumb, and they meet everyone in their life in terms of how they treat them. And I think it's a good book for people to read, to think about the types of users you have. You will have both, and it's nice to have empathy for both so that you can build correctly.
Okay, so there's someone out there that wants to do a startup just like yourself, and they're struggling. What advice do you have for that person?
I would say look at your startup and decide if it is one you need to raise money for or bootstrap. Most likely it is one that you probably need to raise money for, because I think the ones that you can bootstrap, if it's a tech business, right? Like obviously you can bootstrap like an HVAC business, something like that. But if you're trying to build a tech company and you think you can bootstrap it, really the only ones that kind of work for that are PLG, B2B, SMB, right? Like you sell to SMBs, it's self-onboarding, and it's product-led growth. Outside of that, you probably need to raise money. And my advice is like, if 90% of you guys need to raise money, you should start networking with VCs now. It's not impossible to raise. You just have to really want it and work on it. You'll do it.
Thank you. How could listeners get a hold of you for any questions about Reffie, about investment opportunities?
Yeah. We're all over LinkedIn. Our website is Reffie.me, REFFIE.me, and then my email is Connie@Reffie.me. And honestly, if there are any founders that just want unfiltered fundraising advice, I'm happy to give it to them. They might not want to take it, but I can tell them exactly what they need to do to raise money, and it'll probably be okay and work.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for next time. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you for listening to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. If you would like to stay in the loop of our next opportunity or looking for capital to fund your deal, please email ppbarikoff@hotmail.com. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment.